Hey YouTube, how's everybody doing today? Today is Friday, so it's the end of the week for most of us. I had a pretty good week going, pretty busy. But last Sunday I was able to attend a promotion and tournament for a karate club that I used to belong to many years ago, and still part of, obviously. But I haven't been training in quite a bit with that club, but I was able to attend their tournament, and it was quite interesting. In fact, being a black belt of the club, I was able to stand up and bow to them, and they had to bow back to me, so that was pretty nice to be acknowledged after all these years of not being part of the club or being active in the club. But I still enjoyed that part of it. The part I am a black belt in is not karate itself, but more of the arnis, or Filipino stick fighting. That is when you do the fighting with normally a bamboo stick of certain lengths, 26-inch or within that range. And you use defensive and offensive moves to fend off your defendant and to protect yourself. And that's what I became a black belt in probably over 10 years ago, if not a little bit more. I still practice it a little bit, but I wanted to attend the tournament and promotion just to catch up on my master and able to see what they've been doing all these years and maybe remember some of the moves that I hadn't remembered after all these years. So it was pretty nice to be there and watch what they were doing. A little bit is like this. I will show you a clip right now. So that's what they did, just a small part. Just want to show you just a little bit of what happened that day. It was a lot of fun. It was a full day, obviously, because they did the promotions to the brown belts and black belts and such. So that's what happened. So I will let that go for now. He's okay, don't worry about it. So today what I wanted to really cover was my next part of the Magic Lantern series. And today we will be delving into the next menu part. And I believe it's shooting. One of my favorite parts of it's coming up, and that will be the intervalometer. That's the original reason I loaded Magic Lantern onto my 6D camera, was so I could have a automatic intervalometer without having to carry anything around. So let's delve into that and see what's going on. So I have my camera all set up, my iPhone and my 6D camera here, so let's go ahead and just delve into the new menu that we're going to cover today. That should be the shooting one. And let's just see how that goes. So let's go ahead and turn this guy on. And then we'll go into the menu for the Magic Lantern. And these are menus that we've already covered. It's the exposure menu. We got the overlay menu, the movie menu, and now the shooting menu is our menu for the day. So the first one they have is advanced bracketing. So if we go into the queue, the aspects that we can change as far as bracket type, we can do exposure bracketing for time and aperture. We can do exposure bracketing for flash, and we can also do it for depth of field. So let's go ahead and hit the first one, time and exposure. So let's go ahead and turn on advanced bracketing, and you'll see that it gives us a few options there. And if we go back into the queue, we can do frames, which is right now on auto detect, and if we go into there, we can do anywhere from auto detect all the way up to 12 frames. And as you can see down here, it's saying 12 frames unnecessary and may cause excessive shutter wear. And as we go down, it still says it all the way up to 7 frames. So 7 frames of bracketing is probably all you really want to do, or just basically leave it on auto detect. Now the increments, that's the next area right below that. You can set that for a exposure valuation all the way down to 0.5 and all the way up to, if I can get there, should have went the other way, all the way up to 8. So that's your highest that you can go, and your lowest you can go is 0.5. the area right below the increments is the sequence. And if we go into sequence, starting at the 0 base, you can do either 1 stop below or 2 stops below. Starting at the 0 base again, you either do 1 stop below, 1 stop above, 2 stops below, 2 stops above, and it will be that in that order when you see your pictures. And then your final one is 1 stop above and 2 stops above. So I'm going to leave it at the top one here. Let's go down to 2-second delay. Obviously that's automatic. That's your only two options, auto or off. That will give you a 2-second delay between each one. And then you have ISO shifting with a range of 100 ISO all the way to your max auto ISO. And you can do it full ISO or half ISO. I haven't looked into that feature. That's probably one of the ones I'll cover later on as we go into deeper into these menus. So let me go ahead and get back out of the queue and turn that off for now. And then this is the one I've been waiting for, I've been wanting to play with. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on just so we can see the features that kick on. First one there, you have take a picture every 5 seconds. And you can obviously go up or down on that. And I believe the lowest you can do is where it just takes a picture at 0 seconds. But all the maximum one you can do is 8 hours total. And from there you can either go down or up. So I'm going to go back to 2, maybe 2 seconds. So that's for taking a picture every 2 seconds. Your start trigger is your other option, where you can either, once you leave this menu here, or half shutter when you press the shutter halfway, or when you first take a picture. So I'm going to leave it at half shutter for this, go back out, and then this one, the start after, this is where the intervalometer will start at so many seconds. As you can see, you can go up. And I think the maximum is again 8 hours. But you just want to make sure you have enough power to power your camera for that 8 hours in between those intervalometers. So let's leave it at 1 second. And then stop after. This is where you can stop your sequence after however many shots you want to do. 1 being the lowest. 5 thousandths is the maximum that you can do. And actually you will see, as you can see, not enough space for 5,000 shots, only for 702, and that's currently what my card is. I believe I have a 16 gigabyte in there. I can check later, but 5,000 shots is the max it can do, providing you have the right capacity on your card to take all those shots. So that's the intervalometer. I'm going to leave that option open because I'm going to go down to bulb, because these two kind of play within each other, the intervalometer and the bulb timer. We'll go ahead and turn that on and go into Q. And this is where you can set your duration for exposure, starting all the way from 8 hours, which is going to max out your exposure, I'm sure, and starting at 1 second exposure. So I'll leave that. And you can display during exposure. That's where it will turn the screen on or off while taking the bulb exposure. Depending on what you're taking, you might want to see what it's taking. If you're doing like a night photography or anything, you might want to leave it off because the light of the screen may affect your exposure if you're doing really dark pictures, or if you're in a really dark setting. And then you have the option of show the previous pic too. As it takes each sequence of picture, it will show you what your last photo you've taken. So let's go back out of there. So like I said, those two will play together within each other. So if you want to do an intervalometer where it's taking a picture every so many seconds, but you want to take a longer exposure, so you would need the bulb timer on, saying for 1 second or 2 seconds, that's where those two would play in effect as far as helping you out to take that sequence that you're looking for. I'm going to be playing with this and showing you more on that down the road. So I look forward to it, and I hope you do, but we'll be covering that a little bit more. So let me go ahead and turn these two off for now. Now the next one is audio remote shot. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on and go into the Q level. Now the trigger level is decibels. So it's at 1 right now, and the highest decibel that it will register at is 20 decibels above the average sound level within, where you're taking your picture. So you have it anywhere from 1 to 20 as far as when your audio remote shot will take effect. So we'll leave it at 3. So now you see that audio remote shot is on. Go ahead and turn that off. Move on to motion detect. So let's go ahead and turn on the motion detect. And I'm going to go into the Q menu. And the trigger by, you can do an exposure change where the exposure changes before it will trigger. A frame difference where something in the frame changes. It detects smaller movements that do not change the exposure. I'm just reading the bottom there. It'll give you a little hints and tips at the bottom there. And then steady hands, that's basically taking a picture when there's little or no motion. So that's a little different from the other two as far as how it's triggered. So let's go ahead and leave that area, get out of Q, and go ahead and turn that off. So let's move on down to mirror lockup. Go ahead and turn that on and then go into Q. Your mirror lockup modes, you have always on. You have self timer, so it goes up when the self timer is activated or being used. And then you also have the handheld mode for the mirror lockup. I'll go ahead and leave it on handheld because the next version, or the next area, is the handheld shutter. And you have what shutter speeds you want to use during the handheld. You have a half a second all the way to 125th of a second. Or you can use all values as far as your two options on that one. Handheld delay, you have all the way from 0.1 second all the way up to a whole second between mirror and shutter movement. So let's go ahead and I will go back up to there, leave it at 0.1. And the normal mirror lockup delay would be 1 second on that, but you can go all the way down to 0.5 seconds and all the way up to 5 seconds. That comes in handy when you have the mirror lockup delay. You can use it with the intervalometer and the bracketing. That way there's no additional camera shake when you're doing those other two pieces within your camera. So let's go ahead and turn that off. And then flash tweaks will go into there, and you don't even have to hit the Q button for that one. It just goes right into the additional menu. At the beginning here you have a 0.0 exposure evaluation, and you can go anywhere from a negative 0.5 all the way up to a plus 0.5. So those are the range of your exposure evaluation or compensation that you can do during your exposures when you are using a flash. Let's move on down to flash tweaks and go into that one. You don't even have to hit the Q to go in. Now the flash exposure compensation area that you have, you can do a 0.5 negative exposure compensation all the way up to a plus 0.5 exposure valuation and everything in between. So that gives you quite a range for your exposure compensation from a negative 0.5 to a plus 0.5. So we'll leave it at 0. And then the next one here is the flash and no flash. And at the bottom there it says take odd pictures with flash and even pictures without flash. So when you turn that on, is at least the way I'm understanding it, if you're going ahead and you're taking photos and you want to get photos with the flash and without the flash, you don't have to be going back and forth turning on and off your flash to get the photos. You can just keep on shooting, and this flash tweak should enable you to take opposing pictures odd and even with and without the flash. So that's a pretty cool feature, and I will be playing with that later on and showing you exactly how that works out. Let's go in for our last here. Let's go into our last and final area here, that's shoot preference. And the first one is pics at once, so that gives you the option of how many pictures you want to take for each trigger event, and that will work with the intervalometer, motion detection, trap focusing, and the auto remote. audio remote. And the maximum you can do for each one of those is 9. So we're just going to go ahead and leave that at 1 for now. Oops, I got too far. After that is the use of autofocus, and that is just a feature of on or off for that one. After the autofocus comes the postscripts, and as we go into there you can either have infuse, a line infuse, and a file list. And that's the post-processing scripts that you use when you're doing the bracketing and the focus stacking. And then after the postscripts we have the intervalometer scripts, and those are the options that you can do for that. That's bash, MS-DOS, and also the file list for that one. That's sorting of your intervalometer sequences. So as you take the pictures, they will be in a certain sequence based on what you select here in your script. And I'm going to be looking into those further, obviously. And then your final one for the shooting preferences is snap simulation. And this you can take virtual fake pictures just for testing. And I've been playing with this and not quite sure how to activate it yet. But your only options on that is blink and off. So obviously I'm going to be digging more farther into that when we get in. So I hope you're enjoying the little series that I'm doing on Magic Lantern on my Canon 6D. I have a few more menus to go through, and then obviously I'll be delving a little bit deeper in each of them and going over those with you guys. Like I said before, please leave me some comments or questions down below. I will try to answer them and get back to you as quickly as I can. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up to date on the Magic Lantern series if you enjoyed it. I'm going to go ahead and probably go play with the intervalometer for a while, and I will be covering that later when I cover it more in depth in that menu, or before. You may see a few sequences before that. But I hope you have a great weekend or a great week, and I'll catch you next time.